Insight, action, innovate. The Master Series elevates.
In this session of the Master Series, we explored how Microsoft 365 Copilot acts as an AI co-author across Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, helping users move from idea to execution faster than ever. Cory Williams, Principal Solution Engineer at Microsoft, walked through how Copilot can draft and refine documents in Word, analyze data and generate insights in Excel, and transform content into compelling presentations in PowerPoint. Through real-world scenarios and live demos, attendees saw how AI can eliminate the blank page problem, streamline workflows, and elevate the quality of work, whether creating reports, analyzing data, or presenting to stakeholders. For anyone looking to boost productivity and unlock new ways of working, this session provided practical guidance on how to get started with Copilot in the apps used every day.
So for what you'll see today with Excel, Word, and PowerPoint and Copilot in those features, it does require a Microsoft 365 Copilot license, right? Just want to let everybody know about that. For Excel, we're going to go in, we're going to review a sales pipeline, analyze some trends, surface some insights. Word will draft a customer-ready proposal. We'll kind of refine the tone, pull in some relevant information. And then PowerPoint will kind of build a quick pitch deck. Now I focus in on sales a lot to talk through these scenarios, but I hope everybody, even if you're not a salesperson, thinks through the process of we are all selling something some way, shape, or form, right? Whether that's selling a new product internally to pitch, whether it's talking about a project update. Most of us touch Excel at some point for some scenario. Sometimes that then works into me drafting a new proposal or product pitch or a project update, right? And then maybe we need to summarize that information quickly. So really kind of think about that as we go through today's demo, right? I'll recap once we get into the demo and what we're doing again, but just wanted to lay that kind of the groundwork. Another thing on why Copilot, right? Enterprise data protection is default, right? It's there. Your data stays in your environment that you have with Microsoft. It's not leaving it. We don't use that data to train models. When you are logged in, you see our little shield at the top of Copilot, right? You'll see that in the apps as well. We're honoring your permissions and your labels. And then compliance is just built in, right? So all the regulations and things that as an organization you have to meet with, we're covering that within Microsoft 365 Copilot. Another thing I like to talk about just to, again, let you know what's there. So we have something we call Work IQ here at Microsoft. If you haven't heard about that, that is the intelligent layer specific to individuals, okay? It's understanding your data, Teams meetings, Teams chats, email, the files you work with on a daily basis. It's got context about you, right? It uses memory to learn from you, your unique style, which preferences you have, your habits, your workflows. It understands your work patterns over time. And then lastly, it pulls in skills, basically specialized types of instructions and tools that it can leverage, right? Well, I want to send an email. Well, it accesses your email. It pulls up. It opens a draft. It helps you build that out for you, and then you can send it on its way. Those are built for specific tools. All of this makes up Work IQ, right? So again, keep that in mind as you're working with Copilot, is that it understands a lot more about you. Now, before you begin today, some things to understand about where Copilot is deployed and where it's available. You may see different things in my environment than what you see in yours. One of the first things to note is that when you're using the desktop applications of Word, Excel, and PowerPoint, right, you need to be on the current or monthly channel for that. You can find it out in your info section on which version you have. Eventually, all of our customers will be at least on the monthly enterprise channel. But just something to be aware of. If you're looking for newer Copilot capabilities that we're announcing, again, you might see some slight differences here. You're going to want to be on the current channel or using Office in the web browser, right? So you can open up your files in the browser, which is how you'll see me working with it today. We do have Anthropic models enabled in our tenant, right? While Copilot is built on top of ChatGPT by default as its backend LLM model, we make Anthropic available, and Anthropic can do some even more interesting things when we're working inside of our Office apps. And then lastly, we have this thing called Frontier at Microsoft. Copilot Frontier, this is where people can get in and start to use our capabilities when they're in a beta stage, if you will, right? We call it experimental as well. Your IT organization will manage access to this, right? So if you want to be in Frontier, have a business case, go talk to your IT team, help them understand why you want to be a part of this experience. So for today, just level setting where I'm coming from, what environment you're seeing. I'm using a demo environment for today, right? It's not necessarily production content, but our demo environments are very close to a release cycle that our customers are on, right? So if you don't see some of the things you see today, you will see them in the not so distant future. I am using fictitious data, right? So accounts, deals, owners, all of that is synthetic data I had created. You may recognize, if you've been in the Microsoft ecosystem for a while, some of our older companies that we used as examples. I do have Anthropic enabled, and my user is a Frontier user, right? So again, you may see some differences depending upon that data. So that's all I wanted to do, kind of the level set us today. I'm going to back out of my presentation. The deck, when we share it later, has some links to resources about things I might cover today. So again, today we are going to really follow a single thread of a salesperson day, kind of from start to finish, right? One task they may do during that day. We're going to use Copilot inside of the apps, right? Where you might already be living, right? We're not using the Copilot app per se today. And I'm using sales, like I mentioned earlier, because we're all selling something. For today, we're going to start in Excel. We're going to review a sales pipeline. I'll talk through how those flows fit into your picture, right? We'll then move into Word. We'll identify the deals that we need, draft that proposal, create a CIO-ready executive summary, and finally dig into PowerPoint to build the pitch deck. Company I'm working from, Contoso, you probably recognize it, right? We are in the technology sales kind of area, so that's what we're going to focus on. The goal to see, right, is we're working from one source of truth, but we're going to develop 4 artifacts, or work through 4 artifacts for 4 different audiences. And we're not going to do any copying and pasting outside of me copying my prompts and pasting them into the applications. All right. So we've gotten the groundwork kind of out of the way. Where I'm standing today, I'm in my OneDrive. So in my OneDrive, I've got a folder called Customers. And we see here AdventureWorks is the scenario I'm actually building against today. AdventureWorks being that customer. I also have my full sales pipeline report here as well. You could have this data in a SharePoint site. You could have it in a team, right? But we're going to follow that kind of that same flow as we move from section to section through today. So I am, again, an account executive at Contoso. It's Monday morning. I've got this sales pipeline that I'm going to jump into. 5,000 opportunities across the team, right? We're going to focus in on what's important to me. It's about 700 million raw pipeline, right? And I've got a pipeline review with my sales manager in about 30 minutes. So we're going to go ahead and see what's possible for me to accomplish in that 30 minutes. So if we look, right, we've got, again, that highly detailed reports, all the things you might expect, deal stage, deal value, owners, industry that we're in, talking through, right? And again, like I said, there's 5,000 rows in here. One of the things we started to do is, again, we take feedback from the community. So I've actually got Copilot in the lower right corner, right? You may see it on your top taskbar when you're on the Home tab. This little button will follow us through no matter which tab I'm on. So I've got it here where I can start to look at it and quickly pull that into the picture, right? So let's go ahead. We're going to actually ask Copilot to summarize this. But before I do, I'll start my new chat here so we can start from the beginning. This is our interface, right? It'll look very familiar to the chat app. When I first came in, right, it opened up. It has allow editing. So I'm already in this edit with Copilot mode. If you want to go back to the regular chat experience, maybe you want to call on a different agent, you can certainly flip to that from here. The other things that we have here is I can choose my model, right? So I leave it on auto. We're going to go through auto today. Auto basically picks the model to use based on your prompt, right? So you can see I've got GPT here. And because I have Anthropic enabled in this environment, I also see Opus. And you see I've got 4.7. One of the things that we do at Microsoft is we've got a 30-day kind of promise that we've made. When OpenAI or Anthropic releases a model, we work to get those into Copilot within a 30-day window. Sometimes it's available as soon as the next day. So just something to be aware of, right? We are giving you model choice here for you to pick what works best for you or what your preferred method is. We also have our little shield. We've got our enterprise data security. So with that out of the way, right, I'm going to come here and I'm just going to paste my prompt. We're going to summarize the pipeline. We're asking for total raw value, total weighted value, deal count by stage. We're looking for anything that might be unusual. And so what I think is important to note here, right, as we kick this off, it's going to go through, it's going to start reading the data. It's going to start taking a sample set to understand what it's looking at before it starts to take any additional steps and tasks, right? So that's kind of what we're starting to do here. You will see it work through the steps, right? You can click into that and see what step it's on, how it's processing. What it's important to note here is that I didn't say create this formula. I didn't say create a pivot table, right? I basically asked a question that a manager might ask me in a hallway. That's what I'm giving it so that it's that real natural language to build the kinds of things that I need to see, right? And that's really what's super powerful here when we're using this tool set. Now, we may jump into a backup that I had that was pre-built because we don't want to spend all of our time here watching it work. But remember, this is a table with 5,000 rows. So it's got a lot to iterate over. It's got a lot to start building out. What essentially will start to happen as it's getting through this analysis is it will create a new page to build that dashboard out. Okay, so that's the work that's kind of happening right now. I'm just going to show you what that final output kind of looks like while it's thinking through this. So I ran this last night. Oh, I've got the wrong folder here, so I'm going to jump back. Here we go. So here is my summary, right? It went and it built this out. I made no changes to this after I got the output. And so we see here, right, it's pulled in all of our total values across deals. It's highlighting that this AdventureWorks cycle organization has the highest value that we're targeting, right? May or may not be closing in the next 30 days. We've got some key insights here. We also see stalled deals, right, that are still stuck in prospecting. They've been in that stage for 60 plus days. We've got a quick, brief summary that we can also look at here, right? So again, a good bit of detail for us to view and kind of have that idea of where do we stand, okay? So let's see, where are we at over here? Still thinking. It switched over, right? So now we've got our new tab that's been created here. So in a couple of seconds, we should see data start to populate. It'll give our title. We'll start to see each table start to show up in here, right? As it's kind of building this dynamically, we can visually see it. One thing I like to note when this is happening, you might be like, those numbers actually don't look right. Don't worry. Copilot will go back and adjust that when it notices that, hey, maybe this doesn't match up 100%. Because remember, it's compiling this data while going through all those 5,000 rows to build the report out for us. So while that continues to work, I'll talk about the next thing that we might come in and do, right? So let's go ahead and see what my next prompt is going to be. Now, because I'm meeting with my sales manager, and this pipeline may include sales across my whole team, right? Maybe I want to come in and I want to focus in what's important to me. So the next thing we're going to do when this finishes is we're going to ask Copilot to show me my deals that are in proposed or negotiation stage that are closing in the next 60 days. And so that will give me that view and how I can understand my pipeline more readily to bring that to my manager's conversation. You may be sitting here, well, can the manager just go do this? They could, but what the manager doesn't have the context of how you're going to approach it as the individual targeting this, right? So this will help me kind of see what I need to do, what I need to accomplish, and then I can start to do that game plan around it before I have my meeting, right? So here we go. It's finished building out my report. It's also giving me kind of that quick summary that I can review, and here's what the analysis is showing, right? So again, I get kind of that overview. I'll paste in my next prompt, right? Show me my deals like I just walked through. Again, it's going to get to work. Again, creating another tab for me. It may, depending upon where we're at, just filter and format the main view, on the pipeline view, right? There's a couple different ways that this could go, but typically it's again going to go build that additional output for us. So if you go back to my file where I've built all this out already, this is the type of output I'll see. Again, I've made no changes here. It ordered it in the appropriate order, showing my biggest deals from, descending down to my lower ones. I've got the probability. I've got the next steps that are here, and I'm easily able to understand and digest this information and start formalizing my game plan. The other thing I might do, right, in working with Copilot here, and I'm just going to do it from this one since our other one's working, is that maybe I want to go in a little bit more and I want to say, of the deals you just filtered, which one should I focus on this week and why, right? So now I want to get some more context. So we've got our details here, and we'll just submit this and kind of get this output for us as well. So this is just us kind of working through how we can use Excel. I could have asked it to suggest new columns on my pipeline that might be useful. I could have asked it to go ahead and do conditional formatting across the board without me having to go ahead and do that myself, right? So there are some things that we can think about as we move through, working with Excel and things we might want to do. Now, this one kind of said, hey, here's the deal we might want to focus on. Honestly, this was different yesterday because we could be looking at dates and other factors like we asked it. I'm going to actually focus in on AdventureWorks. But here again, we can kind of see which direction might we want to head. All right. So let's say we've got all of our details. The next step, I'm going to close out some of these, is that we're going to go ahead and work in Word. So let's go ahead and jump into my OneDrive. I'm going to go back to my customers here, and we'll jump into our AdventureWorks customer. All right, so I'm going to start by creating a new Word document. Right, it's going to pull us right into our Word document. So now let's go ahead and focus on the proposal. Right, I don't have a lot of data here. We've got our default right at the top. We see, hey, what would you like to do? What would you like to draft with Copilot? I'm going to click again on my little button in the corner because it's going to bring you to the same place, whether I clicked above or I'm clicking on the side. And I'm going to paste in my prompt. So draft a customer proposal for AdventureWorks cycles, manufacturing customer in the East region. We're proposing this migration suite deal. Here's the value. Here's the expected close date. So let's go ahead and build this out for us. Actually, let me stop that real quick. I want to start that over again because what I also want to do, I want to give it a little more guidance. I want to say, here are the sections I want you to focus on. So let me copy my full prompt. Just while I'm doing this, something to revisit, right, when we're talking about prompting, right? We want to have a goal. We want to have the context, right? We've provided both of those. We might tie in a source. I could have added a file here if I wanted to. And then what our expectations are, right? So we kind of give this. Our expectations here might be that tone, confident, plain language. It's a proposal, right? So again, we can see this start to build out for us so that we're not waiting for everything to just load in at once, and we're starting to see the story take shape. Usually in Word, this is a little bit faster than Excel, right? We're not processing a bunch of additional data to build this out. Again, may vary depending upon the context and the information that you're providing it. So we're going to let this finish before I go into the next step. What will follow here is we'll actually jump into our implementation stage, and we'll focus on adjusting what that looks like. So a couple more seconds, and we should be about where we need to be. What we're going to do in this implementation section. So here we are, we're done. It's finished that complete. We'll just say done. I'm going to come in and I'm going to highlight this section, right? So a couple things that happen. It says, all right, do you want to edit with Copilot? Yep, I'm going to actually click on that. It'll bring me back into this pane over here, but we'll say we're going to rewrite this. I'm going to paste in the prompt. We want a 4-phase plan with month-by-month milestones, starting in July and ending in February. Let's use a numbered list for that, right? So pull that context right in over here, knows I'm looking at this section, and we'll start to see it kind of align this for us. There we go. Pretty quick, right? Only took a couple seconds, reformatted it based on my asked, and it always summarizes what it did for us. That looks good. We'll start off with that. We highlighted it, we called it out versus that main paragraph. Now, this looks okay. Maybe next I want to add a risk section, right? So we're going to go ahead and ask it for that, right? Obviously, with any type of proposal, we want to make sure we're covering ourselves in case there's some potential areas that slow us down or potentially stop it with a technical blocker that comes up. So we're going to focus in on building this section in as well. Now, what you will see, and this will be more relevant even when we get into PowerPoint, is that it may ask us additional questions like, where do you want this section? Or it may judge where to drop that section, right? So we have some flexibility in this. And again, it may ask us, again, the location it wants it to be. So we'll give it another second or two here, and we should see it build out our risk section for us. What's really nice about this, again, right, saying we had about 30 minutes to get through this. So far, we're basically in our step 2. The next step that will follow this is going to create an executive summary so that it's much more concise and we don't have to dig through everything. So that was where we're going to go next. If this doesn't finish, we'll just kind of move into the one I've got already created. Again, it's kind of reading through our entire document to build out what might be the additional potential risks based on the input here already and what we've asked it for. So while that's working, you also see up at the top, it actually has our name already here. That's great. It figured that out for us. I don't even have to do it. So great thing there for me. Next up, I want to go and I create an executive summary. So we're going to start another Word document. This time, I'm going to actually reference, the proposal that was just created, right? So here we go. I'm going to first grab my prompt here again, just to copy and paste in. See here. Click on my little button on the side. And what I want to call out here is that in order to pull in content, there are a couple of ways I can do it, right? So if I do a slash mark, that's essentially going to look at my recent documents, the recent items I've worked on. Okay, it's not loading for me. That's all right. I can come in and I can go and add my work content. Interestingly enough, that comes up differently. I'm going to just say proposal. Here's my AdventureWorks proposal draft, right? So I'm now referencing that and pulling that in. I've given it that, again, that goal context, right? And the source is here with our expectations. So I'll kick that one off. Now this is us just referencing existing content that we've worked on, right? And this should be another kind of quick performance here where we get that really concise one-page readout that the CIO could read on their phone, right? Making this short and simple. So this is the first start, the first prompt we're running against it. So let's see what our output is. As I've mentioned previously, right, processing, reviewing the other documents or other subject matter can take some time. So here we go. It's starting us. We've got at least our title in place. You see it also renamed our document for us. Again, simplifying that workflow so I don't have to think about it. And now it's starting to build out those 3 sections that I asked it for, right? While it's doing it, another thing that sometimes people miss when they're using Copilot, right? Again, I gave it the prompt and I'm copying and pasting. But I could have also sat over here and I could have clicked on start dictation and I could have just told Copilot what I wanted it to do versus me actually having to type anything in. And I could have just said, reference the AdventureWorks proposal draft. And because we have Work IQ, it could have gone and found that for me, right? So again, just tying these things together and how people might work in different ways. Now we've got two of our sections. So we're moving along here. What I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to ask it to shift the tone once it finishes dropping these in for us. Paste in my prompt here. So you can see I'm going to do it as if it's a peer-to-peer briefing, maybe a CIO talking to a CIO. We'll remove the sales language, but we'll keep the same types of outcomes that we're looking for. Go ahead and stop it. We are done. All right. So now I'm just going to ask it this next question. Let's go ahead and rewrite this in the voice of the peer. So as it again kind of thinks through this, right, we'll see kind of things change, the tone, whatnot. So this is great, right? But I'm not going to necessarily email these things out to these folks, right? Maybe I send it to the CIO, but I might not send out all the other things I've worked on so far. What I really want to do is I'm going to present a lot of these in a meeting maybe next week. So I'm going to need a deck to essentially do that, right? So we'll continue to let this work, but we're going to move now kind of into that other experience where it's going to be creating the PowerPoint. So same kind of thing. I'm actually going to end up using this file because generating a PowerPoint, as you might imagine, takes some more time. It's going to look through some things, but I want to walk through some of the basics of that. So just like before, I'm going to create a new file here. I'm going to create that PowerPoint presentation. And I'm going to basically give it same kind of thing, right? I'm going to give it a detailed prompt for what I want to accomplish here. So we've got right in our edit mode. Again, I've got different models I can choose from. One thing I want to point out with this one is that we are also starting to give you options for image models. So if you want to have different models build images in your PowerPoint, get some AI generated images, this is where you can choose which model you want to have. This Flux2 Flex, Black Forest Labs, that is brand new. But you also see Microsoft has our own image model in here as well. So again, we're putting these options in here for you to experiment with. Otherwise, Auto is going to choose the best model, again, based on what we're trying to accomplish. All right, so let's go ahead and drop in this detail. You'll see now in Copilot, you have this little expand button, helps you kind of see the majority of your prompt, right? So this one, let's go ahead and we're going to reference the file again. We want to build from, right? So I'll just go ahead and say the proposal again. Here's our proposal draft. We want a 6-slide summary pitch deck for an in-person executive meeting. Here are the 6 slides that we want, right? So I'll go ahead and I'll send that off on its way. Again, start building this out. What this should come back and show us, right, are some questions it might ask. So this is where us, again, starting to tap in these other models, reads our prompt, and then says, hey, I want to get some clarification before I begin to build out this presentation for you. So again, kind of that feedback mechanism that we need to help get to a better first pass than having to consistently reiterate with it, right? So here are my questions that it's decided to give me. What tone do I want to deliver here? Maybe I want this to be confident and polished. What should the implementation roadmap on slide 4 be? I want to point this out because I ran this last night. Right, when I was talking about Work IQ earlier and how it knows and recognizes your patterns, one of the prompts I was going to use in this deck today, I used yesterday, horizontal timeline, left to right arrow. So again, it's learning from the types of things that I am doing inside of Copilot say, okay, which way do you want to go, right? Now, I'm still going to use that one. I'm just going to do a different type of timeline here, and I'm going to confirm that. So again, we're working through it. It's learning from us. We're giving it the types of results and the things that we want to help guide the direction and where we want to go. Now, it's still thinking through things. It's still analyzing the content, figuring out where do things want to go on this page. Something that is brand new and it better show today, it showed for us this week, first in our demo environments, is the ability to select a brand template. So if you're not, here it is. Great. So if you were not familiar, in M365 Copilot, you may have experimented with this create capability. Inside of that capability, for anybody that's in marketing or communications on the call, is what we call brand kits. Depending on company policy, maybe the marketing team is given the ability to say, hey, here are the formal brand kits for us to use as an organization. Lets you do things like your brand, here are image icons, here are templates we like, here are our graphics, here are our themes, right? Outline all of that. Here's our voice and tone. This is looking at that brand kit and saying, okay, what brands do we want to access here? Now, it was kind of serendipitous that AdventureWorks ended up being my example. I'm going to select that as the brand kit to leverage. So here we go. We'll hit confirm. And this is going to proceed, again, like we've talked about, building out this deck. Now, like I said, this can take a while. We didn't want to spend all of our time kind of watching PowerPoint build this out. We'll come back and see where it is, by the end of this. But we're going to let it all go off and do its work and build out that deck for us. But I took the deck and saved a version of it at that point in time, right? So now we're looking at, this is that completed deck. I haven't made any changes to this. This was the outcome when I ran it last night. And so we can see it used our AdventureWorks brand kit. It's pulled in its own images. Maybe there's images we've added to that, or it's pulling from across our organization. I do have an implementation roadmap, got business outcomes, and I've got next steps. Those were the 6 slides that I asked it to have, right? Now, maybe I want to change some things up, right? So like I talked about, right, we've got this implementation roadmap slide. Now, I can already tell that first pass, it didn't line everything up correctly, right? We're doing from July to February 2027. So why is this here versus, over here, right? So there's some slight things. It's also a little bit challenging for me to see July over top of the timeline, right? So this is something that I kind of want to go in and I want to make some changes to. So let's go ahead and give it our prompt. So again, we're in that editing mode already. We're going to say convert this slide to that horizontal timeline graphic with 4 phases as boxes across each slide. Each box should have the phase name, etc. Right? So we're going to go ahead and do that. And it's going to go and start to restructure this for us. Again, going to take some time. What I may also do, right, when this gets done, maybe I still have that theme running in the background, because remember, we're using this from our brand kit. And so maybe I still have to make some slight adjustments to, again, that formatting or the colors being used. So again, something else I can come in and I can say, make this easier to read. The first 2 phases don't match well, right? So it gives me some flexibility in how I kind of outline that. I will note something else that is new, and again, you may see it, you may not, depending upon if you're in Frontier or not. But you'll start to hear this thing around Copilot with skills, right? You may have already seen this in other places as well. We're starting to look at bringing skills into these environments, right? So one of the ones in PowerPoint is just do an overall review of this presentation, maybe improve some slides with some strong storytelling. So that is a fixed kind of set of instructions that you can use, right? So again, think about that. Maybe something you use, maybe it's not, but we'll continue to enhance what type of skills are made available. If I've got anybody here on the call from legal, we're not going to jump into it today, But in Frontier, we recently announced a legal agent, right? So if you've got legal playbooks and you want to evaluate, contracts, even if you're in procurement or some other group, right, and you have a playbook, we now have a legal agent in Frontier that can do that, can do redlining, can work with you and iterate through that document much more quickly than you likely have in the past.
That's super cool. As we're waiting for this, we do have a question in the chat. This customer has one tenant. There's 3 distinct companies in that tenant. Is there a way to limit the brand kits to the different companies or units?
I'd have to double check on the publishing. So one of the things is your organization can determine who has the ability to publish brand kits. I'll have to see if you can section it off. Right now, yes, you can have multiple brands, and you could go and you could share a brand kit with somebody else, right? So you could share it with a group of individuals, but I'll need to check on the published brand kits if that is something that you can also target to groups. I do know, like, anybody can actually go in and create their own brand kit if they'd like, right? And again, like I said, share. But if you want a formal published brand kit, that's the one I'll have to get clarification on. Paul may be able to discover that while we're on the call.
Yeah,
Great.
I'm looking into it.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Paul.
you.
And big thank you to Paul. He is one of my peers, same role. So appreciate him coming in and helping answer some of the questions as well. All right. So since we're dealing with graphics, we're moving things around, we're reformatting. Again, it's kind of just thinking through how best should this look in our final presentation. So we'll give it another moment or so. But the next step we're going to do is, again, we're going to go to slide 2, the what we heard slide, right? And we're going to want to simplify that down for the customer. Again, we're trying to not have text heavy slides, right? That's the overall goal. So how much more can we potentially streamline it? So I'll paste in what my next prompt is going to be, right? We're going to rewrite the bullets in the customer's voice, kind of like we need to, right? We're giving it some context and example of that, instead of like the customer needs, right? So again, a different way of kind of rephrasing, and we're going to trim it down to 3 bullets maximum. Second or two here. See if we get the final output before I just choose to stop it. Like I said, I can go and show you what the final output was of all this, but I'm just looking at our time. So let's go ahead and stop this for now and jump up to the what we heard slide. So I'm going to go ahead and kick this off for this section. Another thing to just kind of note, right, when we're in here, right, we may want to select the individual places as well. Just gives Copilot a little more context. But we'll go ahead and we'll kick this off. Now we're not dealing with imagery as much here, so this might be something that's a little bit faster, a little more concise. So we'll give it a moment to go ahead and update here.
Cory, this is Bill. You got to have some background music, bro.
The trick of queuing it and always having it ready to go. I love that. Love that comment. Yeah. Always when we're putting things into work, takes a little bit of time. I think, as we all kind of advance, and you said patience is important, but the other thing, right, I could go off and do something else. New level of multitasking, right? Be over here doing another work, kicking off another prompt and another document. And I can easily rotate and just have all of these things running in the background for us, so that we are getting more work done. We're improving our overall productivity, and we're getting really good outputs from our documents. So for example, here as a salesperson, I could have multiple accounts that I need to get ready to triage. And I could be doing this for each account and just moving through that flow as I work on things, right? Here we go. We've got this done, reheard, repointed out what we're looking for here. So great thing. And then the last thing we might want to do is maybe we want a closing slide. Like, why now? What is this purpose? How should we move? So here we go. We'll just ask it to add that final slide. and it may ask us, where do you actually want it? Sometimes it does that, right? So I didn't say put the slide at the end necessarily. I'm just setting add a final one. So it may ask us here, where exactly do you want to put this? Again, just some of that feedback mechanism that it has as we go through and build out our content. See, are we still thinking over here? We are. Again, Copilot. But here's our Word document. It updated everything there. We're done with that. Here's our proposal. We're done with that, right? It's just showing like we did make it through. We got through all the things and steps we were trying to accomplish there. And here's that output from when I told it to go ahead and give me my deals, right? So again, we've got a lot of things that kind of work through the motion, built all that out for us. Those were the ones that we kicked off when we first jumped in today. So while this wraps up, let's just kind of recap on what we went through today, right? So essentially 30 minutes ago, we just had a flat spreadsheet. We didn't have any content to support it. Again, it had 5,000 rows of data. We can support more data than that, right? Like that's just one example. I wanted to show that when I originally went through to build this out, I had 20 rows, right? But I wanted to show we can reason over that size and amount of data. Now we've actually got kind of that prioritized action. We've got this customer ready proposal that was written up. We've got the executive summary we can send. And now we have the pitch deck being built with it, right? So we built those 4 artifacts, got insights, built it for 4 different audiences. We didn't copy and paste anything outside of my prompts, right? So basically every word, every slide was grounded in all this data that I already have, that I've already kind of built out. So again, super important on where we are. You can see it did add my slide down here at the bottom. Why now? And we can, of course, as with slides, move that around as we need to, right? So again, lots of flexibility with how we work with this. So hopefully this is kind of giving you insight where you can start using these today. Since I did mention brand kits, no, Paul pasted this in the chat. I did want to show you where that is as we're closing out for today. You know, we'll have a live Q&A here. But as we come in, you go into Copilot. You may not see this anymore. I know, you know, this is a UI update rolling out. Keep in mind, we take all the feedback. We also look at our telemetry, what should be there. If you go to if you now see this view where you've got this little menu at the top for App Launcher, if you're like wondering where did Create go, that's where it went. Create notebooks will show here. Click on Create. When I'm in Create, right, again, I can see these things like even like brand and color, right? I've got my brand kit showing here, right? So cool. I can use that if I want to create an image. But if I go to more, that's where I will see brand kits at the bottom. If I go into that, this is where I can start to create my own brand kit, right? Personal to me. I can see brand kits that might have been shared with me from others in my organization, right? You see shared here. And I can drill into each of these, right? If I just go to create a new brand kit, it's basically going to ask, hey, do you have brand guidelines already? Upload that to me. I'll add that into all of these sections. Have your logos? Upload your logo. What's your primary color scheme? These are all things that may extract depending upon how detailed your brand guidelines are. But again, I've got fonts. I can even pick fonts. We've got a whole font library here, or you can upload your own. Images that represent your brand go in here. Icons that might be for your products that you might have. The templates, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, right? You've got different templates across your organization for different needs. Pull those in there. What's your brand voice, right? What's the style guides that you may have, right? So again, things that you can pull in. If you are somebody that is given that policy to publish a brand kit, you will see this button at the top that makes that brand kit available across your organization. Lastly, let's just look at a brand kit. We'll look at the Zava one here, right? I've got my brand kit built out. I've got my logos here. This one doesn't have the palette. Okay. Don't have a font. Great. I've got images, example images I've uploaded. If your company uses what's called an organizational assets library, Copilot will also use that in addition to the uploaded images here, right? I've got maybe potential icons that I have, because I picked the wrong one. There's the templates. I've got 3 PowerPoint templates, right? So you don't have to be locked into just one. The brand voice extracted from our brand guidelines and the style again. So again, all this information can be pulled and extracted out that you would see in your brand kits. Here's our AdventureWorks one that we used in the PowerPoint. Again, more detailed, right? This one should have the colors in it. So again, just think about that for your organization. And again, if you have that ability to publish, you'll see that there. Otherwise, you'll see Share Brand Kit. All right, so we flew through a lot. Looks like they can be shared with specific groups of users. Thanks, Paul, for sharing that. So again, the more you know, the easier this is. Recommend the other thing. We've been talking about the brand kit. Another important aspect of that is getting your templates ready for Copilot, right? So we do have guidance around that. That is in the deck for you to leverage, right? But again, there's some whole guidance around how you structure your PowerPoint templates using slide masters, using example slides and the like. So definitely recommend taking a look at that as well. Great. So that's the majority of what I have to cover today. Yeah, thank you, everybody.
If you're advising a customer who is just starting to get into using Copilot in Word and Excel and PowerPoint and might be a little, just needs a couple of prompts as a starting point, what are some good simple ones just to make them feel a little bit more comfortable as they're getting started?
Yeah, so the great thing about Copilot is that it gives you some starter prompts, right? So as we even hover over this, right? I want to create a presentation. I want to add a slide. I want to add an image. Pop that open. The same kind of things will come in, right? And you can always click on show more. So this is a great place to start when you are thinking about, okay, how do I even start working on this? Right? You can simply come in and say, create a presentation about, I'm just going to do it because it's my space, AI news. Oh, from the last, right? And I gave it a place to start. So you can always look at, and this happens across all of our apps, right? If I open let's go back to our Excel file, right? We'll just start a new chat here, right? Organize the data, create a summary of this workbook, analyze the workbook and data insights, right? Again, we're giving you these starting points to start exploring. But I think a lot of times, just think about what you want. And sometimes people find it easier to just talk to Copilot and tell it what they want. So again, just think through those types of scenarios. Like I mentioned, you can always move in and out of these, but again, just think about it as if you're talking to a colleague or a peer. That is sometimes the easiest way to get the types of things that you're looking for. Great question.
Thank you for that. Yeah, thank you for that. What would you say is one of your favorite things that you can do in PowerPoint using Copilot?
I mean, I do it kind of all the time where it's just creating that initial deck, right? There are so many times where I'm like, oh, I need this type of presentation or that type of presentation. And so the fact that I can pull in multiple files, let's just go create a new one. I'll just say create a new PowerPoint. And I can just pull in any of the source content. We showed you pulling in the proposal, but let's say I've been working with this customer for a long time. I need to pull in history. I want to pull in additional details. If I go in and just start kind of pulling stuff in, right, I can do multiple files. Maybe I've got, research. I've got this exec summary. I've got other decks that maybe I've built that I want to pull slides out of, right? I've got a bunch of additional files. Like all of that information I can pull in and it quickly builds that deck out for me, right? I say quickly, I can walk off and come back to it and I've got a big deck. The other fun thing to do, AI images, right? Just telling it, hey, these images are great. They don't necessarily match what I need. Can you generate some in AI for me, right? And it will go and build out those images for you, which is also pretty fun and cool because you can give it some really interesting guidance there. And I think lastly, asking it for speaker notes for that storytelling. I talked about how we have this skill over here, right? But you could just ask it to go create a story and add those speaker notes to the slide deck for me.
That's nice.
Kind of walk through it. So that's, again, something because, taking notes, right? We don't have a context rich screen. We want to downsize it some. Maybe we take some of that before we do and say add notes for the slide, add it for my entire deck. Again, you'll see kind of some things that grow there. But yeah, that's a lot of how I use it. Let's just quickly create a deck on the fly. I'll iterate on it as I need to.
Cool. We have another question in Excel. Can we ever expect to get a different result or output for the same question or phrasing on the same data set when asked more than once over time? Or will it be consistent and always provide the same result?
Will not always provide the same result. So sometimes be explicit about what you're asking for, right? To get, if you are somebody that needs that exact same result, you want to make sure you're calling that out every time. And it should be similar. Like if we're looking at the values, that's one thing. If we're looking at the format and the output that you're seeing, that's another, right? So sometimes it may give you a table, sometimes it may give you bullet points in the chat as it's responding, like that will be different. But when we're talking about values and things of that nature, those should be the same. So if you refresh your workbook with new data, you've made updates to cells, obviously that's going to make a change, right? But fundamentally, asking it the same question in the same way should give you the same responses and the same results.
Great. That's good to hear. What about custom skills? Are they supported yet?
Not yet. Be on the lookout for that, right? Skills is one thing that we are starting to build into a lot of our products. You saw where I could have the pre-built skill, but we're starting to experiment with building your own skills. If you're somebody that's in Frontier and you've been using co-work, we'll do that in a future session. But that has the ability for you to create your own custom skills there. Even bring them in from other AI tools and have skills built there, right? So yeah, markdown files and building skills is something that we've got top of mind, and you'll start seeing that in products throughout the rest of the year.
I love how you also gave us a little view into the future that we'll be doing a co-work session soon, probably this summer. So good answer. Thanks, Cory. All right, we just have a couple minutes left. Any other questions from the audience? Okay. Well, we'll give you 3 minutes back into your day. Thank you so much, everyone. We appreciate you taking the time to learn more about co-work in the Microsoft application, or excuse me, Copilot in the Microsoft applications. Cory, fantastic job. Everybody will receive an email with the recording, but always can visit our portal. Do sign up for our email list, and we will make sure you know about upcoming sessions. Again, co-work is coming up. Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Inside action, innovate. The Master Series elevate.